Illinois gets Xavier. Feed me the Musketeers on Friday. Let's go. Welcome to another edition of From Beyond Champaign. I'm Cody. You can follow me on all the socials at Cody_CHGO. Most of my Illini content is on my TikTok or this YouTube channel, though. So wherever you consume the most of it or you want to consume the most of it, that's where I would definitely point you. My Twitter account as well, but I probably wouldn't follow me on Twitter if you're not a Cubs fan. I'm just being honest. But anyway, good morning. Happy Merry Christmas. Happy March. I mean, I feel like we've been celebrating the fact that it's March for the last 20 days, but the greatest weekend of the year is here. Undoubtedly, the greatest weekend in sports is here. Finally, we used to dream of times like this. We do every year. We get into November, we get into December. It's freezing cold and college hoops is starting. And we're thinking about our team and what they're going to do in March in the big dance every year. And we have finally made it to this point. And while I think our expectations are not as high as previous years, and what I mean by expectations, maybe I shouldn't say expectations, I should say hopes and dreams. I don't think they're nearly as high as maybe last season. I still get excited about this tournament every year because I'm not just watching it for Illinois. I'm watching it for every team that's playing from 11 a.m. Central Time until midnight Central Time, whatever time zone you're in. We're watching college hoops Thursday through Sunday, and it's just a joyous feeling. I get a joyous feeling thinking about it. I think about all the great games, all the great upsets we have watched over the years in this tournament. And unfortunately, Illinois has been on the wrong side of some of them. And fortunately, Illinois has been on the right side of some of them. You want to talk about some of the best tournament games Illinois has had. What about the most obvious one? We'll be celebrating the 20-year anniversary of it in 6 days. Illinois and Arizona in the Elite Eight in the 04-05 season. I still remember where I was. I still remember how, as a young teenager, thinking that anything was possible after I watched Illinois and Arizona in the 2004-2005 season in the Elite Eight, and what is one of the great college basketball games ever. And obviously, just a historic, magical season for Illinois that we just don't talk about the ending because Sean May still has, he still owes us, I feel. He still owes us a few fouls or something. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not trying to veer off into that. But that's one of the great games. That comeback against Arizona, it was wonderful. And then obviously, if we want to move to a more modern time or a more recent time, the loss to Loyola in the second round a few years ago and during the, Io DeSumu's, best year at Illinois, still sits with me as a top 4 loss of my life in terms of just all sports. If you want me to include all the teams that I like, we're talking, the double doink for the Bears. That's up there. This loss to Loyola. It wasn't a game, but when Derrick Rose tore his ACL, it was just one of the more, it felt like a loss. It felt like just a deflating loss. So that game, even though they won that game, it was the writing on the wall for what was to come. And then if I go to the Cubs, it's like Bartman used to be up there, but then they won the World Series. So I've let go of that pain a lot. But it's still up there. But if I were to remove that game and put a different game, maybe John Lackey's walk-off homer he allowed to Justin Turner in this 2017 NLCS Game 1. That basically summed up the series after that. That's basically – they avoid the sweep, but, man, that series could have gone different if the Cubs would have stole Game 1. But, there's a lot of brutal losses I've had to endure over the time, and Illinois has their fair share of them. So we are here once again, to ride this roller coaster and see if Brad Underwood can live up to what we think he can, what he can, can he get the quote unquote second weekend monkey off his back, even though he technically has. We now need to see him do it more than once. We need some consistency. He has put a standard on the program that we are going to be a second weekend team every year. And you did it last year. You went to the Elite Eight. You got completely throttled by UConn. We forget about that game, right? But you got there. You had an incredible game against Iowa State to get there. And, did BYU getting upset in the first round kind of help you out en route to getting to that Sweet 16? Yeah. But you know what? Illinois didn't exactly draw some favorable spots in the tournament in previous years. You can make the argument that they should not have had to play Loyola in the second round. I believe they were the number 1 overall seed in that tournament. Sounds kind of brutal to me. I still think that Loyola should have been a higher seed from that season. Whatever. It's been 3-4 years. I'm just trying to exercise these demons. The point is that we're trying to exercise demons here. And so can Illinois get to a second weekend here in the 2024-2025 NCAA tournament? And last night, Xavier and Texas faced off in the last game of the first 4. And whoever won that game was going to face Illinois. And it looked like Texas was going to run away with this thing for a while. And then they did not. They ended up blowing a huge lead. And Xavier made a huge second half comeback and ended up winning this game, I believe, in overtime. I actually did not stay up for this game. I watched the first half and was like, all right, I guess we're going to play Texas. And then I was in bed and I went back to check the score to see what the final score was. And I realized that Texas was blowing the game. I was like, oh shit. So I think Xavier going into Friday with a lot of momentum after the comeback, but is there a letdown coming after the huge comeback? We can talk about that, but I feel like we need to just kind of talk about Illinois coming into this tournament from a spot perspective. They're coming off a 23-point loss to Maryland in the Big Ten tournament. Thankfully, I mean, there's two sides to this. That loss sucked, and I expected a better performance for Illinois against Maryland in that matchup, given that they were healthy and all of that. And the effort was not there, right? And which leads me back to a lot of my concerns that I've had all season. On the other hand, Maryland's really good, and I think I can put my hand up and attest that perhaps maybe I, didn't give them enough credit back in January, and maybe didn't even give them enough credit going into that game. Two things are true, right? Nonetheless, 23-point loss going into the NCAA tournament is not exactly where I'd like to be, my friends. It just isn't. So do I have a little anxiety from that? Yes. However, I did read a stat. The degenerate creators are out there, and I did read a stat. They're Locking Cash on Twitter, TikTok, wherever. Does great work for Action Network. He put up a video on TikTok the other day, listing the teams coming off a 20-point loss going into the NCAA tournament. I don't know the exact time frame. Like, it's a pretty long time frame, but teams coming off a 20-point loss going into the NCAA tournament are 27-15 in the first round. So that's given me a little bit of hope, a little bit of like optimism in terms of just, it's a new game. You've had a week to prepare for whoever. I would guess that Brad Underwood has been preparing for both Texas and Xavier, because why wouldn't he? I do think it's a little bit of a disadvantage for Illinois, for the fact that they didn't know who they're going to play, but it is what it is. I do love Illinois' potential journey in this tournament, considering who is in their bracket. But I won't lie, I feel like I'm more afraid of this first round matchup than anything else. I think that if they win tomorrow in Milwaukee against Xavier, they'll be underdogs against probably Kentucky. And we'll see what happens. Now, if they play Troy, I think they'd obviously be favorites. But I just think that even with Kentucky, with some of the injuries that they've had and the fact that they don't play a lick of defense, I'd actually feel better about the matchup than anything else. At least if Illinois gets there. But when looking up things about Xavier this morning, I got a familiar feeling that I have seen recently that Illinois actually took advantage of or played in and won. And that game was against Purdue a few weeks ago, where where Illinois beat Purdue, and then Purdue did not. I just want to emphasize again, they did not tweet the final score. But anyway, the reason that I get Purdue vibes going into this game against Xavier is that Xavier isn't that different from Purdue in terms of how they score the basketball. So let's talk about why I feel that way. All right. How they score the basketball and how they defend the basketball, I should say. All right. So Zach Fremantle is been playing center for them. I think he's more of a forward, but I think they had an injury or something of sorts, and he's been playing more center all season. But he's kind of like their TKR, right? He's been there for 6 years. He's got a lot of experience. I can't believe it's been 6 years, but yes, he's been there for 6 years. But one of the things that I feel I get like Purdue vibes from them is that they're ranked 8th in the Big East in 2-point defense. As we know, Purdue ranks in the 300s nationally in 2-point defense, right? They also are 322nd in bench minutes, so they don't have a lot of depth, right? And they're coming off this huge game where they had to fight all the way to get back and try and and steal the game, in which they did. That's why I'm curious about a potential letdown for them going into this game against the Illini, right? I think those are the three things. Fremantle kind of gives me is kind of like their TKR guy who can do pick and roll. He can go down the post. He finishes well. They're not a good defense inside the paint, and then they don't have depth, which is something that Purdue doesn't have either. So I'm not saying that Xavier is exactly like Purdue. Purdue is obviously the better team and has been all season based off ranking, strength schedule, all those things. But they're kind of similar in a way in terms of like the things that I feel like are a lot of what Purdue has been this year. So can Illinois take advantage of that? If you go back to the Purdue game, Purdue shot pretty well from the 3-point land, and Xavier is a really good 3-point shooting team. They're top 10 in the nation in 3-point percentage. All right. They've won 8 of their last 9 after the win over Texas, so they're playing well right now. It's honestly kind of the not necessarily the opposite as Illinois, but they've won 8 of 9. They just had this huge comeback victory against Texas, and we're at this point in the season, or beginning of March, and I feel like momentum is such a big thing. Xavier for sure has more momentum going into this game than Illinois does. The only thing Illinois for sure has over Xavier going into this game in terms of vibes is that they've had an entire week off. And when they play in Milwaukee on Friday, they will have had a week off while Xavier will only have 1 day of rest. All right. And I also found this interesting, and this is kind of a pro for Illinois as well. Xavier only has one quad one win, too. And did they did they just sneak under the radar in terms of like all the slander that UNC got from all of the national media? I did not realize that Xavier only had one quad one win. And then I looked it up and was like, they only got one quad one win. This is interesting to me. So now their win over Texas, I guess you can make that too. But yeah, I see a lot of things that Illinois can take advantage of in this matchup. But will Illinois win the game? I feel like Illinois is either going to win the game or they will lose the game, like due to their own doing. Like they will self-inflict. I feel like because they're 2.5-point favorites going into this matchup. That's where it opened up in Vegas, right? I feel like everything about this matchup points to Illinois winning, but we just don't know because we haven't had any consistency from them all season, which makes it incredibly frustrating, right? So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this game. I think Illinois, and I've said this all season, Illinois has the talent and everything like that to be able to get to a second weekend, maybe flirt with a Final Four if they get the right matchups, which in this bracket, I think they can. But they're so young. They're so inexperienced. Dre Gibbs Lawhorn is the only guy on this team that's played in like the NCAA tournament. Am I correct on that? I don't know. Trey White was with Louisville last year and USC before that. Maybe Trey White played in this tournament with USC. I don't know. But they're very young and inexperienced. And this is like, I think this is why a lot of people in their brackets I've read, or not read, but just a lot of videos I've seen, a lot of discourse related to tournament. You know how everyone posts who they're taking to win in their first rounds. Like, not a lot of people are taking Illinois. And I can't necessarily blame them because they're just so inconsistent and you don't know what they're going to do. But if you just look at the rankings and particular stats and stuff, I feel like Illinois is the better team here and should win. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy one, but I'm just saying that I'm not surprised that they're 2.5-point favorites going into this game. Jay in the chat. Only thing that scares me is it seems one of these play-in game winners always wins a game or two. That's true. That reminds me. I'll bring up another stat that I read. Gotta put my do not disturb on so that sound doesn't happen again. Okay. This is from Sharpside Sports. All right. 11 seeds are 29 and 27 straight up since 2011, and 91% of those are being an underdog. So 11 seeds have been very profitable from a betting standpoint in the NCAA tournament. And then there's only been 1 year since the first four was implemented. There's only been 1 year where one of those teams has not advanced to the round of 32. We're just talking about one team. It doesn't have to be all of them, but one team. So who's the hotter team? Xavier or North Carolina? After what North Carolina did to San Diego State, if I'm Ole Miss, I'm like, man, why were people talking so much trash? I don't know. But we'll see what happens in that matchup. I don't think both of them will win, as in UNC and Xavier. But you are correct, Jay. There is always one team from the first four that finds a way to, make it to the round of 32 or the Sweet 16. And right now, if you and no bias, right now, if you ask me which one I think will go further, I would say North Carolina because they just beat San Diego State by like 40. Xavier sucked for a half and made a huge comeback to beat Texas. I don't know. That if there's my spin zone for you guys. Both could easily win, right? I'm just saying, like and again, I am speaking on this from a betting gambling standpoint. So these are just trends and 29 and 27 straight up since 2011. Most of those wins are underdogs. That also shows that not every 11 seed is winning at the same time. So, that's just, there's just a little bit of a way to look at it. It's like what I just said about the 11 seeds and what I also said a few minutes ago about teams coming off 20-point losses going into the NCAA tournament. 27 and 15 since, I don't know, the year. But it's an interesting way to look at things. Maybe we can talk ourselves into this is a bounce back for Illinois. We know how good Brad Underwood is coming off a loss, right? So, from Illinois' perspective, when I just mentioned all these things about Xavier and Fremantle and all that, they have great 3-point shooters. I won't lie, I'm a little afraid of what Dante Maddox could do in this game for Xavier. Illinois did recruit him this past offseason. He transferred out of Toledo to Xavier, and I guess Illinois was one of his, last 5 or whatever. He chose to go to Xavier from Chicago Heights. So I feel he will probably get up for this game, but he has been in a bench role with them, only averaging around 18 minutes per game, but he's shooting 40% from 3. So I think key for Illinois to win this game, they got to defend the 3. They have to. And Xavier will make some. They're top 10 in 3-point shooting for a reason in the nation, right? But they cannot let Xavier get hot from 3. So, and Illinois' defense is designed to force people off the 3-point line. So if that means Fremantle is going to have a day, it's kind of like TKR had a huge day, right? And maybe Illinois should have brought the double team a lot earlier than they did. I think we can all sit here and agree with that. But I also think, which poison will Brad go with? And I think that he's going to be more willing to let Fremantle do whatever he wants down low, let Tommy or Merez Johnson just kind of one-on-one defend him and not allow those threes. So I think that will be key in this game. And I do think that what will also be key for Illinois from their perspective is they need Kasparis to not turn the ball over 5+ times. I need Kasparis to turn the ball over less than 5 times in this game. It's been tough. It's been tough, right? I do think his box score line was better in the last game against Maryland. He still turned it over too many times, but he got it going offensively. So I say the turnover thing for a reason, because it's the NCAA tournament. It's his first one. The cameras will be all over him. They'll be talking about him a ton going into this game. And I just don't, I fear what that pressure can do since he's an 18-year-old kid. But we have played the season. They have played one of the tougher schedules in college basketball. They have played against big teams. This is like the entire season. That was what was meant to help groom him in a way, right? And it's been up and down. You can make an argument that since the wrist injury, it's not been great. It's not been consistent, that's for sure. But they're going to need Kasparis to at least take care of the ball. If he at least takes care of the ball, I can live with a 10-point game with like 4 assists. All right. But you're going to need Will Riley, Kylan Boswell, Trey White to do what they were doing before they lost to Maryland. And you're going to need Tommy to be productive and not get 3 fouls in 12 minutes. I like what Philip says here in the chat. that I haven't mentioned yet. The game is in Milwaukee, so should be a very pro Illinois crowd, and I agree. It should be a pretty big Illini crowd. I really wish I could go, but I could not afford a ticket, and I've been trying to pay down my credit card, and so I wasn't going to add anything else. So of course, the one time that they play close and I decide to not go, I'm pretty bummed. And I have a friend who works for the Milwaukee Bucks. I reached out and was like, "Hey, can you help me out here? Can you comp a ticket?" And they could not, unfortunately. So I gave it the old Hail Mary. Did not work out for me. But anyway, yeah, there should be a pretty big Illini crowd, which hopefully it makes things more comfortable for guys like Kasparis and stuff like that. So I think Kasparis just not turning the ball over, I think, is probably the most key for him, at least. I think this team has enough depth and enough offense in them that they're not going to need him to go out there and score 20 unless no one is making anything. And if that's the case, then we're probably not winning the game anyway. But I think their defense will be key, defending the three, Kasparis not turning the ball over, make your free throws, and you need to get Tommy going early. I think Tommy can go up against Fremantle. I don't think it's a terrible matchup for him. Fremantle is not Derek Queen, right? So yeah, those are probably my keys to this game: is Kasparis taking care of the ball, get Tommy going early, and make your free throws. I think that you do those three things, you have a really good shot to win the game. That's basically where I'm at, my friends. Okay. Jay says, couldn't really ask for a better draw. The first two teams they're playing at least are not in the top 10 in defense like the teams which give them problems. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, if we just look at the bracket, man, like they have I feel like me saying that they can go to a Sweet 16, Elite 8, I don't feel like that's me being delusional. I just feel like they got a great draw. They got the best possible draw they could have as a 6 seed. And what scares me is if they lose this first game, will it feel like when they lost to Loyola? Because if you look at the path, it feels like something they should be taking advantage of. And if they don't win this game, how are we as Illini fans going to view Brad Underwood and the program and everything after everything we've endured this season? If they lose this game, how are we going to view all of that? And I'll just be honest with you. If they lose this game, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed. And I'm going to feel like I'm going to be sitting here thinking, what if they lose in a close match or a close battle or something, and there's, whether it's they miss 7 or 8 free throws, or, Kasparis turns the ball over 7 times and doesn't score the ball, and has like maybe 2 assists, like, something like ridiculous, right? Like if it's anything like that, it's just a lot of the same stuff. They shoot too many threes whenever they're 300 or whenever they're one of the worst 2-point defenses in the Big East. It feels like that's things I should be looking at coaching for, not telling them to adapt, or not adapt, but attack. And I'm just going to feel very frustrated. I'm going to feel like it's a missed opportunity. We've seen way too many seasons where he's had better teams and they didn't do well because the draw didn't go their way, you can make an argument for, or there was an injury, or maybe they just weren't that good. But I feel like we all think that they have the talent to, in this draw at least get to the Sweet 16. And I feel like not only is it the standard, but I feel like I'm also going to be disappointed that they didn't. If they lose this game, I will also feel like it's a massive disappointment. And And in many ways, it might feel like the Loyola loss because it just feels like a really big missed opportunity. Against Loyola, they were the 1 seed. They were one of the best teams in college basketball, and they lost in the second round. You're a 6 seed here, but you look at the path, it feels so winnable. It at least feels so winnable that perhaps maybe it will feel like a bigger disappointment, a missed opportunity. Let me know what y'all think on that, because that's how I feel right now. And I hate feeling this way because I want to just accept that they are who they are and they're Jekyll and Hyde. They could be great. They could be awful. The floor is low. The ceiling is high, right? But then you look at who they can potentially play, and it's like they could go on a run. And I don't think I'm sitting here being delusional about it. I think I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is certainly possible. So I'm not trying to be negative going into the tournament game, guys. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just pointing out the scenarios here. Now, if they win, beat Xavier Friday, like late Friday night, right? They beat Xavier, go into Sunday facing either Troy or Kentucky. We'll see what happens in that matchup. We'll just assume they're going to play Kentucky. I think it's a much better matchup for them, to be honest with you. Plus, Kentucky having some injuries, I feel better about them going into that game than I do this game against Xavier. And I think this game against Xavier, the only reason I don't feel great is just previous PTSD and just the fact that I don't know what you're going to get. If you're playing Kentucky, I feel like you're kind of going in with the mentality of we're playing with house money, because Kentucky will probably be favored in that game. But they don't defend for shit. They're a terrible defensive team. Mark Pope, not great in March. So, I don't know, man. We'll see. Jay says, have to win at least one. The season to me would be unsuccessful or a failure if they don't. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Philip, when we drew Loyola, it's kind of like Houston getting Gonzaga this year. Yeah. I also feel like that's kind of like Auburn getting, what would it be, Creighton or Louisville? Because Louisville, if they play, they'll be in Lexington. So that's like a huge bonus for them if they beat Creighton at least. I actually have Creighton winning today. I think I have that right. Maybe it's Oklahoma. I have to look at the bracket. But some of the 1 seeds, it's kind of interesting how Duke is the only one I feel confident in, and Cooper Flag has a bad ankle right now. So we'll see. What else we got here? Jay says Loyola is probably their worst loss in tournament in their history of a program. Yeah. That perspective is actually true as well. I'm not necessarily saying that it would be a worse loss again than it was against Loyola if that scenario plays out. I'm just saying that I think that I would feel like it would feel like a similar loss. You're a 6 seed, you lose to 11, so the optics on top of that don't look great, but also it feels like a missed opportunity. So, but yeah, the loss to Loyola, can you make an argument in the tournament at least that it's one of the worst losses or the worst loss in program history? Sure. I sure as hell know that it sits with me every day, man. And it sucks that I live too close to Rogers Park here in Chicago. Philip says Creighton versus Louisville and Lexington to play Auburn. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, Oklahoma and UConn. I actually like Oklahoma beating Florida, by the way, or beating UConn, and I think Florida will get by Oklahoma, but it'll be tough. Okay. I don't really have much else, but I guess I'll do a final score prediction here for y'all. What, they're 2.5-point favorites. I don't know what the total was, probably in the 140s. I'll go Illinois. Illinois 90, Xavier 85. Illinois 90, Xavier 85. I think Illinois will take advantage of their not great 2-point defense. They'll hit some shots, and I think their defense will show up for enough. They'll show up enough. It's going to be hard to defend all the threes because they're a good 3-point shooting team, and they have a lot of shooters, multiple guys, 40%. But I think Illinois is going to win this game. I'm not just saying this with my heart. I'm just looking at it from other things as well. So that's where I'm at. All right. Before I get out of here, we can go over the games for today. My two favorite against the spread games today. I love Kansas against Arkansas, and I love UCLA against Utah State, I believe. And one reason is their 7 seeds and 10 seeds really, really struggle in this tournament. They have of late, at least. And then also the Mountain West has been awful in the NCAA tournament. So that's one reason why I like those two teams. I like Texas Tech minus 14.5 late night tonight as well. Those are probably my 3 favorite plays for today. But I did tweet out my bets for today for Thursday's slate. I'm not going to bet every game, even though my degeneracy wanted me to. But some of my upsets. I think my favorite upset of the day is High Point against Purdue. I love High Point today. I think Purdue is going to lose this game. Honestly, if you want to make more money, I would take High Point money line. I love High Point today. Purdue coming into this tournament, it's not just one bad game. Like, they have not played well. They almost lost to USC in the NCAA or in the Big Ten tournament. They lost to Michigan the next game. It's not great. So I'm going to take High Point. I like McNeese plus 7.5. I think they could win outright as well, but I actually have Clemson going pretty far in my bracket. So I think McNeese will hang around, but I don't think they're going to win. I like VCU as one of those 11 seeds to win. And I like Drake also as one of the other 11 seeds to win, plus 6.5. And then this has been a very not talked about thing, like in this view, but I'm taking Michigan minus 2.5 against UC San Diego. San Diego's kind of like the McNeese of last year, where everyone's talking about them being like this huge upset possibility. And like, I know they're 30-4 and they're like one of the better mid majors. I get that, but they just lack size. And Michigan is playing well going into this tournament. Now, could there be a letdown after winning the Big Ten tournament when no one thought they would? I guess. But I think the only way Michigan loses that game is if they turn it over way too much and they allow and San Diego scores off those turnovers, right? But I think they have too much size. Like, their biggest guy is 6'8". I mean, Vlad Golden and their front court. I just don't see how Michigan loses the game. So those are most of my plays for today. I think Georgia plus 6.5 as well. I love taking 9 seeds, especially if they're underdogs. But I don't know if they'll win that game, but I am going to take Georgia to cover the 6.5 points. So those are my plays for today. Perhaps come back on here tomorrow and at least put up a short or something, maybe on my TikTok account for tomorrow's plays. But anyway, tomorrow during the game, I will probably be live on my TikTok account. If y'all want to come hang out and just, I was live on TikTok during the Cubs' first 2 games in Tokyo. It's just kind of like a chat to just kind of hang out, a little live watch along type thing. So if y'all want to come watch the Illini game with me on Friday from my couch, go follow me on TikTok. Just the same handle here on YouTube. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm optimistic. And I also think that they're the better team. So we'll see if I'm right or we'll see if I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm going to be really pissed off Friday night. All right. So before I get out of here, please hit the like button. I went the entire show without saying it. So you could do me the favor by at least doing that. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Would appreciate it. I've gotten a handful of new ones recently. I appreciate it. If you've come from the Locked On Illini Discord, I appreciate you guys. It's a fun community over there. I keep forgetting to put it in my description of my YouTube channel, but yeah. So I will see you all here Friday after the game, most likely. If not after the game, because it'll be late. If not right after the game, maybe Saturday morning for therapy if they in fact lose to an 11 seed. I sure as hell hope we're not sitting here doing that, but we'll see. But yeah, one game at a time, my friends. One game at a time. That's the way I'm viewing it. Might watch Illinois, Arizona, like on the real grainy YouTube video version of it. Crack open a couple beers while I watch it, just to kind of build myself up, build up the hype, to ride that roller coaster that we will ride Friday night in Milwaukee. That's just, I'm weird. That's how I do things. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but either way, we'll come back and talk about it when things are done. So again, hit that like button for me on your way out, and I'll see you guys Friday. As always, guys, I appreciate your support. ILL.